a very big, warm welcome to you tonight. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Whether you're joining us through Zoom or Facebook Live, we're delighted to have you with us tonight, and we appreciate greatly your engagement and your participation in every night of this mission so far. This is the final night of our mission, Be Christ's Joy. So, just to tell you the format, because at this stage you're well used to it, but it's a little bit different because it's our final night. Our special guest, Olive, gives her input to start with. Then we have a transition piece of music, and then we come back with your questions, and hopefully you'll have kept up your great tradition and you'll have sent us a number of questions that we can pose to Olive. Francis Rowland will be joining us at that point with the questions. Now, because it's our last night, we'll have a 1-minute video at the end of the night from our Instagram Youth Doc project. And we're delighted to have Bishop Ray Brown with us tonight, concluding the mission. So again, thank you for your participation. It has been great, so positive and wonderful. On to our special guest. Tonight, as you know, our special guest is Olive Foley. Olive Foley is the wife of the late Anthony Foley, the very well-known Irish and Munster rugby legend. You probably knew him as Axel Foley, and you're also aware of his sudden death on October the 16th, 2016, which shocked the world and shocked the country and led to an outpouring of sadness nationally and internationally. For Olive, it was her living nightmare, as it would be for any young mother. She had to deal with the loss of her loving partner and the adoring father of her 2 wonderful sons. Daniel is now 12 and Tony is now 15. But along her journey, Olive discovered that family and community are what really count, and they were there for her every step of the way. So tonight is kind of a celebration of that, of family and community. And of course, throughout her grief, she felt that God was very much at her side. Olive now works closely with Sister Helen Culhan and the Children's Grief Centre in Limerick. In a former life, she was a banker, and to me, she seems like a Clare woman through and through. And tonight she's coming to us from Killaloo, I believe, which is her home place, and she can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Her theme is Journey with Hope. Over to you, Olive.
Thank you, Mary, for that lovely introduction. And yeah, I'm talking to you tonight from Killaloo here in County Clare in East Clare, and just to say a huge thank you to the Kerry people who've tuned in tonight to listen. I have a huge connection with Kerry. I'm sure everybody says that, but so my closest friends are great Kerry people, and hello to them tonight. They're listening, Martina and Aileen, and yeah, huge connection to Kerry. Sister Quilter rang and asked would I like to be involved in your mission, and what an honor to be asked. And I said I couldn't say no for sure, because Sister Quilter has a connection. Her nephew is David Quilter, who's a principal in my children's school, St. Munchins Dawson College in Limerick. So thank you, Sister Quilter, for asking me, and thank you all. So most of you wouldn't have ever heard of me, but I met Anthony in my early 20s. And we got married a few years later in July 1999. We'd be celebrating our 22nd wedding anniversary this July. We have 2 children, Tony and Dan, as Mary was saying, 15 and 12. And Anthony was better known as Axel. So professional rugby player. It turned professional back in 1995 when professionalism just had arrived on our shores. He had a very successful career playing for Shannon, Munster and Ireland, and won many things, a couple of European Cups and many All-Ireland leagues, and had a very enriched rugby playing career, but in 2008, he retired and immediately joined Munster's backroom staff and took the role of head coach of the province in 2014. Something we were very proud of. It was a lifelong ambition of his to be head coach for Munster. So it was very exciting. But we had a couple of very difficult years. Munster, I suppose, weren't as successful as they had been, and it was an era of transition. And we had no question we had a difficult couple of years. But in October 2016, the 16th, as Mary was saying, the day I'll never forget. It was a very ordinary Sunday morning. Usual things going on around here. I was up early, gone for a walk, mass, the usual, the kids, busy. And it was an exciting day because Munster were playing in the first round of the Champions Cup. They were due to play a racing match with that afternoon. So we were excited about the match. And funnily enough, I had a conversation with Anthony the night before, and he actually said, we've a good chance of winning. Things are looking good. And we were very optimistic and very positive. So we were excited. But before every game, the players and the coaching staff would meet for a pre-match breakfast in the hotel that morning. So they were in Paris. And Anthony didn't show for breakfast that morning, which would have been terribly out of character. He was head coach. He was a man of routine, so it was a surprise that he didn't show up for breakfast. But it wasn't until he didn't show up for line-out training after breakfast that the team and the management became concerned. Unaware of what was going on in Paris, myself and the kids were busy, and forevermore, I'll never forget what it felt like to hear the news that, in fact, Anthony had died in his sleep in that hotel room. So the moments and the days and the hours that followed that were truly the most devastating and heartbreaking moments our families would ever have to endure. I never could have imagined that I would have had to prepare and deliver a eulogy for my husband's funeral at the age of 42. But I spoke about our family life, and I spoke about our home. And I spoke about the idyllic life that we had with our children here in Killaloe. Anthony's values, I believe, were perfect. But here in our locality, throughout our community, and further afield, there was a huge affection for Anthony. He was a very ordinary man. He was a big man, and he played in a tough game, but he always played and coached with heart and passion. He was respected. He went about his business with humility and treating all around him with kindness and respect. He was a hands-on dad to our kids and involved in every aspect of their lives, despite a huge commitment to rugby. I believe Anthony has left us a great legacy. Now, I'm sure that many, not all of you here, especially in current circumstances that we've found ourselves living in, you have experienced grief. And my grief is no greater than anybody else's. But losing Anthony created a void that was simply impossible to fill. And it's said that grief is difficult because it's the last act of love. And where there is a deep grief, there was a great love. In losing Anthony, I lost my husband, my best friend, and perhaps the most heartbreaking of all is I've lost the father of my children. They were only 8 and 11 at the time. During the darkest days after Anthony's death, I found much comfort in my faith. And I wouldn't like to pretend that I was not angry. There was difficult times. I was angry with Anthony because he died. I was angry with God because he'd taken him. But grief is like the ocean. It comes in waves, and sometimes the water's calm, and sometimes so overwhelming that staying afloat is a struggle. The angry moments are always followed by peace and comfort. I always felt God's presence in many ways in the support of my family in the support of Anthony's family, in the support of my church, in the support of my wonderful friends. There was always someone at my door. I was not afraid to ask for help. I had 2 children that needed me to be everything for them. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, I think I have proven that that proverb certainly applies to a grieving family. There was always a lift to Scouts, to the hurling field, or dinner on a friend's table. But at the time of Anthony's death, Tony and Dan were in primary school. The school principal sought help from the Children's Grief Centre in Limerick. The centre was set up by Sister Helen Culhan with the backing of her congregation, the Sisters of Mercy. They set that up about 12 or 13 years ago now. But the centre provides support for children who are grieving the loss of a loved one or suffering because of parental separation or divorce. Both my children have used the service. It has helped them to navigate through their grief. And I myself developed a very strong connection with Sister Helen, which led to my appointment as ambassador of the centre a few years ago. The centre has provided such great support for me and my children, and it was lovely to be able to give something small back. But Anthony's death was devastating, and my grief has 2 parts. The first is the enormous loss of Anthony and the grief, and the second is to try and start a new life. And the Children's Grief Centre has played a pivotal role in that. And if Anthony's death has taught me anything, it's that huge loss in life is unavoidable. But through the support and the love and the sharing of stories and the kindnesses, that colossal can be faced. A few days after Anthony died, Tony, who was just 11 at the time, he came up with a tribute idea for his dad. He would invite people to come to Mass. There was 8 Masses between the time Anthony died and Christmas. So he'd invite people to do 8 Masses for their loved ones and think about their loved ones and say prayers for them and maybe include us in them prayers. But the idea was put together and the Facebook page was set up. And the idea for hashtag 8 Masses for number 8 began to spread. The number 8 holds a very important place in our house because Anthony played number 8 for Shannon, Munster and for Ireland. So that 8 Masses was a huge tribute and something that's very, very close to my heart. But it reached over 160,000 people in over 40 countries worldwide. We were propped up with support from around the world, journeying us through prayer. The messages of love and support, the thousands of letters that we received, was something that we were no more entitled to. It was a privilege for us. But anybody that has lost anybody, that pain and that suffering, our pain was no greater, but we were very privileged at that time. In the face of great loss, it is easy to lose faith. And it's easy to doubt our beliefs. But this comes from a very, very deep place of sorrow. The pain we can feel indeed may make us question our beliefs. But I really believe that we experience God's work through the kindnesses that we have all around us. And maybe sometimes the simplest thing, like somebody coming to your side and simply saying, I am sorry for your loss. That is God at work. Before Anthony's death, I couldn't imagine sitting here from my home in Killaloe with my 2 boys upstairs listening in. I couldn't have imagined that I would be able to speak to you here, to all these people in Kerry and speak quite comfortably. But I believe that because of my suffering, that maybe there's another possibility for me in life, that maybe I can give a small little bit of hope to anybody, or a little bit of comfort to somebody who is suffering. This is an unexpected yet very comforting outcome for me. It is now over 4 years since Anthony died. God didn't promise us a world without suffering, but he did promise strength for the day, comfort during our sorrow, and light along the way. And for this, I am terribly grateful for. Now, back to you, Mary. Thanks a million for listening to that.
Olive, thank you so much for sharing that story with us, your story. And, you know, I felt upset listening, but, you know, and I really thought what you said about that your grief is no greater than anyone else's, but you're sharing it with us to tell us the positive side and the journey with hope. So thank you very, very much for that. We appreciate it. Now, tonight our focus is, as you see, a lot on family, children. So our piece of music that we're going to play has that child focus. And Francis Rowland in the background is collecting questions for Olive that help us greatly as well in exploring all these themes. So it's Who I Am, Hillsong Worship. And again, I didn't go too far from home for our singer for this. So Ger, you're playing that in the background when you get a chance. Thanks again, Olive, and stay with us.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. And while I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the sun sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Yes, I am who you say I am. Ooh, who the sun sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
Thank you very much, Ger. And thank you, Francis Rowland, for joining us, joining myself and Olive with questions from our listeners on Facebook and YouTube Live. And what have you got for us, Francis?
Lovely to have you with us, Olive, and lots of questions coming in. But firstly, a huge big thank you coming in from people, really appreciating you sharing your own journey of grief, of loss, of sorrow, and that you've brought a bit of hope to people who are also experiencing something of the same. So thank you for that. That's the first big comment from people. And then really a question around what has helped you make this journey meaningful for yourself. Many people have texted in and just sort of said, you know, they're experiencing maybe a separation or divorce or the loss through death of a loved one. How do they start the journey?
Well, when Anthony died, and actually going back to that eulogy that I had written, one of the last things I said, and it kind of summed up the whole eulogy, was I'm handing Anthony over to God now, and my faith is going to see me through this. So I work on my faith, and I love Jesus, and I think that to love Jesus, you have to speak to him a lot. So Jesus is a very important everyday part of my life. From morning until night, I would talk to him. I love prayer. I would, and I've been in a lovely position over the years, and I know you spoke about your one of the little things that's coming on later is a little pilgrimage, and I've been very blessed to actually have had the joy to go on pilgrimage and have that. Do you know when you go on pilgrimage, you know, I've been to Knock, I've been to Lourdes and Medjugorje a few times, and to go on pilgrimage, you get that real intense closeness because you're completely distracted. And that is something that I have always found stood to me over the years, that I'm able to tap in. Do you know, and sometimes you just go, and I mean, of course, we all have days where you just don't, you're so distracted and you're so busy and you're so overwhelmed by grief. But it's exactly then that I go, okay, that's it. I need to stop. I need to light the blessed candle. I need to get my rosary beads out. I need to talk to Our Lady. I need to say a prayer. I need to go down to the grotto here locally and say a few prayers. And immediately my day will change once I just spend time in the presence of Jesus and do that lovely prayer and meditation, just sit in the presence of God. Sometimes I could go up to my room and go, now I've arrived here now, Lord. I'm going to sit in your presence there now and you talk to me. I'm not going to do any of the talking. And I get great comfort. That for me has just worked wonders.
That's really helpful, Helen. I'm sorry, I'm looking here. There's a lovely comment in from Helen Calhan saying thank you very much for the work that you do with the Grief Centre. So that's distracted me for a moment. Sorry, Olive.
No, that's all right.
People are also saying, were you always religious, or did Axel's death, God rest him, push you further that way?
Yeah.
Is that a good way of asking it?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Do you know, I grew up in Tuamgraney in East Clare. My father was a local farmer and butcher, and my mother is a primary school teacher, and we're very traditional Catholic house. So we grew up like that, Mass, Rosary, especially in November, May, you know, Rosary at night, we prayed together. And, you know, I got a lovely basic Catholic teaching from my family. And but I think it was when I went to school, I went to the presentation school in Thurles. I was a boarder there, and my friends will still to this day remind me of how annoying I was when I would jump out of bed at 10 to 7 in the morning because I couldn't get to the church quickly enough. So I've always appreciated God, and I've always been quite aware of him as being a really important part of my life. I think after Anthony died, no question, but I said I need you a little bit more now because I said I need to lean on you a lot. So no question, but I have a deeper faith since Anthony died. But there was always my love of God and my love of Jesus, and I love Our Lady, and I love prayer. That has always, I can't remember a time in my life where I kind of didn't really bother with it, but since Anthony died, no question, I have a deeper faith.
Okay, thank you. And then a question that's come in that I hope maybe you might be able to help with is those who work with children who have lost a parent, particularly through death, what are the suggestions you'd be making to primary school teachers, you know, where they've a group of 30 youngsters, but they're aware that somebody has a lot of grief in their life at a present time?
I think the most important part, and this is something I would have learned from Sister Helen over the last few years, working very closely with her, is children need to be listened to. Children need support, and children, they don't need therapies, they just need support. They need their voices to be heard. They need to know, they need to have someone that they can really rely on, and somebody they can trust. And that's where the Children's Grief Centre has been incredible. And it provides a service second to none, you know. And I mean, I meet adults all the time now, and they'd say, you know, you're working with the Children's Grief Centre, and they say, I wish there was a Children's Grief Centre when I was a child. Do you know, maybe they'd suffered the loss of somebody they loved, or maybe parental separation or something like that. But children just need to be loved and supported and listened to. And sometimes in an environment where maybe I don't want to talk to anybody in this house because that's only going to upset anybody in our homes. That's where, you know, the likes of Sister Helen now, and they're providing a service for children that's it's out of their home, but in this beautiful environment in the Children's Grief Centre, where they're listened to and they're able to express themselves through conversation, through play, through art.
And another question that's coming in is really for yourself, and thank you for that, around the young children. It's around, okay, we all have moments of grief, and particularly with COVID, the sense of grief is palpable for many people for different reasons. But you're very generous in saying that your grief is not greater than anybody else's. How did you get to that stage? Whereas oftentimes we feel that our grief is the greatest that could possibly be.
And there's no question, but grief is very consuming, and especially in early days, you know, you've lost somebody, it takes over your life completely. There's not enough room for one other thing to get in them days and moments after somebody you have loved has died. And somebody actually used a lovely description of grief. The grief stays the same size. And there's this lovely picture of a jam jar for all the world. And in the jam jar is a tennis ball. And the tennis ball is completely filled up this jar. And there's no room for anything else to go into this jar. But as time goes by, the jar gets bigger, but the ball stays the same size. So your grief always stays the same, but your life grows around the grief. And that's exactly where I spoke about the Children's Grief Centre, that it has given me an outlet. It has helped support my children, but it's also given me a purpose and something where I can go and help other people who are in my situation. And even been here this evening, it's lovely to be able to give back and to help. Just so many people helped me after Anthony died. And you know, to be able to give a little thing back is just worth so much to me and to anybody grieving. And time will help. Time is a great healer. And we're going through awful turbulent times at the moment, but we'll look back on this, and this will still have been this really horrendous time for an awful lot of people, but our lives will grow around it. I do have great faith in the future, and I have great faith in things will improve, and we will come back to another life, and we'll always find a level of happiness, and our trust in God will always stand to us.
Well, if I might just, Mary, make one last comment, the beautiful comment in here, lovely comments around just your generosity of sharing your grief with us, Olive, and just supporting and encouraging people who might be at a different stage in the journey. But a lovely comment of you radiate joy and happiness, and that you have given us a lift this evening in this darkness of COVID. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's a lovely thing to say.
Thanks, Frances. And I just do want to go back to all of that. And I want to also say to people that the two boys helped her get her room ready for tonight. So I just want to say those must be two great lads with a great eye for colour and beauty. So fair play to the lads getting it ready. I'm delighted with that. But then just on our kind of more serious note from you, Olive, what would you like people to do or be thinking as they go away from you tonight? What final words do you want to leave them with?
I suppose what I'm going to do this evening now is I'm going to light a blessed candle, And I'm going to just sit in the presence of God and thank Him for all the wonderful joys we have and the wonderful positives that we can take out of life, and ask Him for strength going forward.
Olive, that is absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and stay with us as we move towards the end of the night. You've been wonderful and we really appreciate it. Now, I have a number of few things to mention to you. Tonight, before we go to Bishop Ray, we're going to go to a 1-minute video with you. And this is really, I want to tell you a little bit that young people and young adults have engaged with this mission. And they've engaged with us on Instagram, our Youth Doc platform, Youth DOK for Diocese of Kerry. So they had a project, and the project was called Let Us Dream, the path to a better future. And this was inspired by Pope Francis. Let us dream the path to a better future. They submitted a number of pieces of artwork to Instagram, to Youth Doc. And there's a photo by Rebecca Daly I put up on the website earlier this evening. And we'll have a beautiful poem from Mairead Fleming on Horizons the week after next. And tonight, Jer's just getting ready to put on this short video, 1 minute, from Roman Gallagher. All the pieces that they've done will be displayed and will go onto the platform, the Youth Doc platform, in time. But we'd just like to take a look at this little 1-minute piece from Roman Gallagher. So pass on the word that Youth Doc is out there. Welcome back. That's class, really, isn't it? Lovely, beautiful work there, and we're delighted that to be able to share it with you tonight. Now, I want to welcome Bishop Ray Brown to join us now, because this is the last night of the mission, and I want Bishop Ray to say a few words to us before the final wrap-up. Welcome, Bishop Ray.
Good evening, Mary. Good evening, all.
Okay.
It's an amazing night. I see we had over 800 joined in. Just a few words to wrap up, in my sense. And first of all, sincere thanks to Olive. You know, hers is a wonderful witness to resilience, to joy, and to hope. And all of those amid great, great difficulty and sadness. And our team, maybe she witnessed to that fact that Christ is the source of our love and our joy. So sincere thanks to Olive, and every blessing on her and on the two boys, and on the project she's involved in with Sister Helen. So thanks to Olive. Then just to say, to look back to Sunday, the first Mass and the 6 days, and just to say well done. Well done, first of all, to all who linked in. You know, I think was there as many as almost 4,000 got the link to join in. So well done for whatever part people joined in for. And second, well done to all at the Diocesan Pastoral Centre and all involved in the communications end. And well done to everybody involved in the preparation of it. And, for example, those involved in the 6 parishes where the 6 masses were. And one simple thing that this and other things that have happened in the past few months, have told us what a wonderful thing the internet is and what it can be, in so many ways to nourish our faith, and for us to gather as a diocese or as parishes, to enhance prayer and spirituality and everything about Christian living. It's becoming clear we can do so much more, so much easier, and so much easier to gather. And it is a real gathering. So just, let's appreciate the week. And also maybe don't forget to encourage people that much of it is still on the website. People have missed it, but they haven't missed it. It's still there. I'll be concluding with a prayer. But just before that, I just want to go back to the message I wrote for page 2 of the booklet. Maybe in its own way, it might be a good way to remember and just to bring back thoughts to you of the week that's gone. Just a simple thing about, I do think that people who pray, the vast majority of them find that they need a prayer book. They have a prayer book. They've found support in a prayer book. It's been part of their basic kit for prayer. And the booklet, the wonderful booklet that was produced for the mission, that can continue to help people. There's nothing as nice, nothing as warm as that very first poem on the very first day. But just to read for a moment, so then to go back to a message from Bishop Ray that I wrote some weeks back, just to read 3 paragraphs. Soon it will be a year since the coronavirus first impacted on all our lives. A difficult year, but a year that leaves us with a good feeling too. Enforced staying at home has led many to a deeper appreciation of ourselves, of our homes, of our neighbours, of our communities. I wrote, may the mission be a time for reflecting together on the past year, evoking both gratitude for how our country has responded and trust in God for what lies ahead. I hope it has been that for you. And the quote at the very top, the quote from Matthew's Gospel, the words of Jesus. Jesus' words there at the start, they'll always be his words for us. They're his words for us tonight. Those words, come to me, all you who labor and are overburdened. You will find rest for your souls. So let's go forward from this night, staying close to and trusting in family and friends, staying close to and trusting in Jesus Christ, our Saviour. God the Father sent him as his Son to us. Finishing then with what's on the back page, the outside cover, a prayer to the Creator. Lord, Father of our human family, you created all human beings equal in dignity. Pour forth into our hearts a fraternal spirit and inspire in us a dream of renewed encounter, dialogue, justice, and peace. Move us to create healthier societies, and a more dignified world. A world without hunger, poverty, violence and war. May our hearts be open to all the peoples and nations of the earth. May we recognize the goodness and beauty that you have sown in each of us, and thus forge bonds of unity, common projects, and shared dreams. Amen. And that prayer is taken from a wonderful document by Pope Francis released last autumn, Fratelli Tutti, in English, sisters and brothers all, saying we're one human family. We have to start treating each other as brothers and sisters. It's a beautiful prayer. So just for a moment, let's ask God's blessing on all who have participated in the mission. But we come from 53 parishes and beyond, from all over the diocese and beyond. Let's pray God's blessing on all our communities, all the communities of our diocese. We pray God's blessing. May God be our strength. May God fill us with gentleness, goodness, and kindness. In difficult times, may God be our peace, and may God be our strength. We think of all our communities, especially we think of people who are troubled. And we ask God's blessing on us all, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Back to you, Mary.
Thank you very much, Bishop Ray. Thank you very much for that. We're delighted as well. There are people joining us on Zoom, and it's their last night, and there's an equal number joining us on Facebook as well. So we've fantastic support for this. Thanks again, Bishop Ray. That is wonderful. I have a few things to remind people of, and I just hope I remember them all. The first thing is people will get a feedback form. So please, we would love you to fill it in and give us feedback. And we appreciate the wonderful feedback you've been giving us night after night, and your comments. Cherished is what we will say. So you'll get a feedback form. Please send it back to us. Secondly, coming up shortly in the coming month, there are 2 webinars for parents with children preparing for the sacraments. The first one is the 23rd of February, and Jer's put up a sign there for showing all the details. Dr. Dan O'Connell, wonderful speaker. He's been in the diocese before, and he's looking at First Communion and Confessions, the Sacrament of Reconciliation. So he's working with you as parents to help you prepare your children for these sacraments. And then the second night is another wonderful woman there, Patricia Kiernan, and she's going to work with you, with parents who have their children about to make their confirmation. And as you see there, it's on Tuesday, March the 2nd. So we're finished with the mission tonight, but we haven't gone away. And as Bishop Ray said, we really haven't gone away, because all our information is on our website, and we'd both encourage you definitely to go there. What else had I? Oh, pilgrimages. Francis Rowland reminded me that in our booklet that the Bishop showed you, we talk about pilgrimage, because we had a big discussion and debate. How long would the mission be? Would it be 6 days? Would it be 7 days? And what we thought was, could Saturday be your family day? Could Saturday be the day that you went on some pilgrimage within your 5-kilometer zone? And we'd really encourage that, to spend time with your children, to take all the wonderful things we've done with you and put some of it into action with them tomorrow, perhaps. So that brings me back to the website, because they're up on the website. Francis has put a list of possible places you could go to on our website. So I think I've mentioned everything I should have mentioned. I hope I have. The main thing that I want to say is, from the bottom of my heart and the mission team and Bishop Ray, I'm sure, thank you very much for making this mission worthwhile. We have loved it. We have enjoyed it. We have enjoyed your feedback. We hope that you got something from it as well. So, a very good night, a very big thank you to all of you. Fánaigí Slán. And thank you very much. Jer might put some more music on us to just send us off into the journey. Journey with hope.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. And while I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the sun sets free, always free.